Hello everyone, my name is Lucas Kost. Today I'm working with Schaaf Tools to bring you this video on how to carve a wood spirit. First, I'll cover the specific tools that we'll use for this project, then I will briefly explain my mounting system back here, and then we will get right into the good stuff of how I approach bringing a face out of a piece of wood. This is just the first video in a series of videos, so we'll probably only get to the rough out stage by the end of this video, and then in future videos we will bring this project into the end zone. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and let's get right to these tools that I'll be using for this project. Okay, so the tools we'll be using for this project are from left to right here, the 20 millimeter number 3, and then the 15 millimeter number 11, and then the 10 millimeter number 12. And these three right here are from the set of 7. And then from the set of 10, the next three, we have the 8 4 millimeter, the 9 10 millimeter, and then the 11 3 millimeter. And then from the Fishtail Set on the right, we have the 3F 6 millimeter. Okay, now the mounting system is really simple. It's just 3 2x4s stacked on top of each other, and then 1 2x4 on top, and then a 2x6 up the middle. And then what I do is I take my piece of wood, screw it to a 2x6, and then I can clamp these 2x6s onto one another with some spring clamps, and then we're good to go. Okay, now the last thing that I want to cover before we jump into the project is the kind of wood that I'm using. So this is cottonwood bark, and I highly recommend trying to find some cottonwood bark if you can. It's available to purchase online both in Canada and the US. But I also want to mention that no matter if you're carving in basswood or butternut or any other kind of material, the principles and the set of steps for carving a face are the exact same no matter what you're carving in. So don't worry too much if you can't find cottonwood bark, or if you would rather carve in something else. You'll still be able to learn how to carve a wood spirit from start to finish by following these videos. Okay, without further delay, let's get right into it. Okay, for this first step, we are going to use the 20 millimeter number 3, and we're going to clear away the material here. And basically the idea is to create a semi-round surface to start from. So I'll clear away. Okay, and just giving you a close-up here to see what this semi-rounded surface looks like. Okay, so you can see I've drawn a circle with a horizontal line through it and then a line down here. So this is going to be where the chin would be, although we're doing a wood spirit, so it'll be covered up with hair anyways. And then the bottom of the circle is where the bottom of the nose is going to be. And then the cross section through the circle will be the eyeline. And then the top of the circle is usually about where the head, the top of the head, will stop. Again, with the top of the head, similar to the chin, we're doing a wood spirit, so it'll be covered up with hair. So these lines right here and here are not super important, but this is the general method for determining facial proportions that I use. And we're also going to sort of triangle off a little section like this for where the nose is going to be. Obviously the nose won't end up looking like an actual triangle, but we just don't want to touch any area in here for now. Okay, so the next step for carving is we're going to use this 15 millimeter number 11 gouge. We are going to make a cut horizontally that follows this line. We're going to make sure the top edge is right at the line. So we're actually scooping the area underneath. And we want to get a decent amount of depth here. I always recommend doing sort of smaller, shorter motions, taking off just a little bit at a time, and then you can do another pass through to get a little bit more depth each time. Okay, so our next step is to basically clear away all of this material in here and in here on either side of the nose and up to the eyebrow ridge. And we're going to leave this stuff in here because this is going to be the nose, right? And so we want this to be coming further forward than everything else. And so in order to get that effect, we're going to clear away this stuff. I'm going to be doing this with the 15mm number 11 once again. So I'll do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so our next step is to bring down the forehead. So to do that, I'm going to be using this 20mm number 3, and we're just going to make cuts that basically remove this material down. So still maintaining that semi-rounded shape for the forehead, but just bringing it down below the level of where the nose will be right here. All right, and again, a quick little close-up from the profile view so you can get a sense of how that nose material here is coming further forward than the forehead now. Okay, next we're going to shape the nose a little bit more. So I start by drawing a smaller circle here to just sort of identify where the tip of the nose is going to be, the ball of the nose, in other words. And so I'm not going to touch any of the material in here. So I'm going to use this V tool here, this V shape, I believe it's the number 12, and I'm going to come underneath the nose with this tool. Just kind of create a line to define where the bottom of the nose is going to be. And next, again, using this number 3, I'm going to clear away the material underneath, just like that. And then I'm also going to take back the angle of the bridge of the nose so that we have a nice, consistent sort of a angle here. Just like this. And again, I've left this ball of the nose untouched so that it will be coming forward. And you can see here that when I was doing this angle cut for the bridge of the nose, I left some material here, and that's okay. I'm just going to come in with this number 11 again and kind of clean it up a little bit. Just clear it up. And redefine these cuts. Now you can see these two lines that I've drawn in that tell you where the bridge of the nose is going to be. So all this stuff in here is going to be the bridge of the nose, and we don't want to touch that anymore. We're going to try to leave that be. But the next cut is an interesting cut. Now there's two ways to go about this cut, which is going to bring the bridge of the nose forward. One of these cuts is using the, well, they're both using the number 3 that we've been using. And we can do what's called a sweeping cut. So we start digging down on an angle like this, and then we sweep it out so it leaves a nice clean transition out the other side of the cut. And we can do that all along the bridge of the nose like that, leaving it raised. Okay, now the second way of doing this cut is what I call a plunge cut. You take the corner edge of the tool and you do a cut like this. You sort of insert the blade like this and you run the cut upwards like this. And now this seems like a really ugly cut, right? It's not a clean cut. You're left with all of this material here that hasn't been cleared away yet. But what you can do next is you can come in with some sort of a U-shaped gouge like this 10mm number 9, for instance, and you can clean it up. So this is just an example of the sort of diversity of cuts that you can do with one tool, right? I did the plunge cut on this side and then the sweeping cuts on this side. Okay, so next we're gonna draw in the shape of our mustache for our wood spirit. And I like to start the edges of the mustache lines kind of at the corners of the bottom of the nose here, coming down something like that, and draw something like this. There we go. Now to bring the mustache forward, I'm going to take this number 11, I'm going to carve away around the outside lines. And I'm going to come up to the nose, making sure that I'm being careful not to slip and carve the nose off. Of course, that would be a disaster. I want to get some depth up in here, but I can't really come out of this situation with a clean cut. But that's okay. You can just leave it and then come back at it downwards from a different direction. Now to really bring this mustache forward, we're going to have to remove material below and above the mustache. We're going to do that with the trusty old number 3 that we've been using a whole heck of a lot. It's a very useful tool. And just remove the material below the mustache. And then the same thing above. Okay, now that we have the rough shape of the mustache, we're going to do a similar thing for the hairline. And again, for the sake of simplicity, we can just do sort of a whatever hairline your best judgment says to draw on. So, I'll just draw sort of a semi-rounded line like that to follow. And to carve the hairline, we're going to do something very similar to what we did with the mustache, with this number 11. And we're going to just carve, leaving this area raised, which will be the hair. And then again, I'm going to come back with this number 3 and remove the material below here on the forehead. Again, focusing on this semi-rounded shape that the forehead has. We don't want our forehead to be flat. Okay, our next step is to just define this mustache and this hairline a little bit better with this V tool, and just trace along those very same lines that we did to sort of define it a little bit better. Now, a very important step in carving eyes is the setup of the eyes. And what we're going to do is create these mounds of material in here. You can see I've drawn in these semicircular shapes from the inside corner to the lateral corner of the eye on both sides. And we're going to leave the material inside of this semicircle raised forward, and to do that we will carve in below them. You can see here on this carving as a model how the middle material of the eye is raised forward, and so it's dug in deeper all the way underneath here. Of course, these eyes are closed and we're going to be carving open eyes, but it's the same process nonetheless. Okay, now I'm going to begin these cuts with this number 11, this large number 11 that we've been using. And I'm going to just use the top edge, right? You want to be mindful of where the top edge of the tool is, because we don't want to be taking away material from these eye mounds. So we're going to be mindful of the top edge and run the top edge along the pencil line that we've drawn here. And scoop out the area underneath. And then we can go in and flatten out the area beneath it with this number 3. Okay, now next we want to get into the corners of the eyes, and this is one of the most challenging parts of carving a face and getting realistic looking eyes, is really getting into these corners in here, because it's tricky to get it so that the bridge of the nose is still coming forward, but you have a lot of depth in this corner here. Okay, now with the 3mm number 11, I'm going to do these scooping cuts starting from above and scooping down and really getting in and getting a lot of depth in this corner of the eye here. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing on the lateral corners of the eye, which also have quite a lot of depth in this area. Okay, the next thing we want to do is round off these areas, and I'm going to do that using this small detailing fishtail gouge, the 3F 6mm. I'm just going to go in and make small cuts, little tiny cuts at a time, to round this ugly shape that we've created into a nice spherical looking shape. Another close-up here so that you can see how the eye mounds are coming forward. I really like this lateral profile view at this stage. It really allows you to get a sense of the shape that this eye mound takes. And this is crucial to setting up a realistic looking eye carving. Okay guys, that wraps it up for part one of how to carve a face. We covered the tools and the setup and the rough-in stages today, and in future videos we're going to be talking about how to detail the carving, how to really bring it to life with the finer features of the nose and the eyes and the hair and wrinkles, and all of this stuff will be covered in future videos. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.